Tanzania is the world's leading safari destination, but what should you expect from your safari in Tanzania? And what should you know before you go to Tanzania for safari? If you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Laura and I've been traveling all over the world for the past few years. I share lots of travel vlogs, hidden gems, and lots of travel info over here, so make sure you subscribe if you want more of that. So when it comes to safaris in Tanzania, the first thing you should know is what safari parks and what national parks you want to visit, and there's a few options here. So most people who travel to Tanzania will do something called the Northern Circuit, and as the name suggests, this is in Northern Tanzania. It usually starts and ends in the city of Arusha, which is also known as the capital city of safaris in Tanzania. And this circuit consists of visiting 4 national parks: the Serengeti, Ngorongoro, Tarangire, and Lake Manyara national parks. Out of all of those, the Serengeti is definitely the most famous national park, and Serengeti in the Maasai language means endless plains, so it consists mostly of grassland, and it's a great place to see animals because there aren't many trees or bushes around. So in any park where you see lots of trees and lots of bushes, the animals are going to hide in between them and they're going to be harder to see. And because the Serengeti doesn't have much of that, animals are almost in plain sight a lot of the time. The Serengeti is also a great place to see predators, particularly lions. When I was there, I saw so many of them. I had so many lion encounters that I actually lost count. And if you've been on safari before, you know that lions and big cats in general are usually harder to see than other animals. However, even though the Serengeti is the most famous national park in Tanzania, my favorite is actually the Ngorongoro. So the Ngorongoro crater is spectacular. It has some truly amazing landscapes. I have never seen landscapes like this in any other safari park in Africa, and the wildlife here is also spectacular. Because the Ngorongoro crater is a smaller area, it's 22 kilometers in diameter, the animals will often come closer to you because they just don't have anywhere else to go, you know? There's a lot of animals in a small area, so you will get to see a lot of them close up, and I got to see lions, zebras, antelopes, lots of gazelles, and the Ngorongoro is also a great place to see black rhinos. I unfortunately didn't see any when I was there, but it is still one of the best places. If you're going to see rhinos anywhere in your trip, it is most likely going to be in the Ngorongoro. If you want to know more about the Ngorongoro, I really recommend that you watch this travel vlog from when I was there. It's a really good vlog, if I may say so myself, so I'll make sure I link it in the description as well. I'll be referencing a lot of my past YouTube videos in this video right here because over the past few months I've been posting a lot about Tanzania. It's one of my favorite countries ever, and I've posted lots of travel vlogs, lots of informational videos, and I think that you might find them really useful and really relevant if you're traveling to Tanzania. So I'll make sure I link all of those videos in the description. Moving on, the other 2 national parks that people usually visit in the Northern Circuit are Tarangire and Lake Manyara. So I did go to Tarangire and I have to say I was a bit disappointed by it. I didn't see a lot of animals and the landscapes weren't as spectacular as in Serengeti and Ngorongoro. That said, I did visit during the rainy season and maybe it wasn't the best time of the year, and I think I just got unlucky if I'm honest because everyone else that I've talked to has really liked Tarangire. As for Lake Manyara, it is the only one of the 4 parks that I have not visited. However, I have seen the park from the outside and I have been to the lake, so I do know what it's like, and it has a lot of trees and a lot of bushes, so I imagine it would be quite difficult to see animals. And every time that I talked to someone about this park, they told me exactly that they saw some animals but not as many as in other parks like the Serengeti or Ngorongoro. Personally, the reason I didn't visit Manyara was because I didn't have a big enough budget to visit all of the 4 parks, and I was advised that if there was one park that I should skip, it should be Manyara. A lot of people who do the Northern Circuit also choose to do activities that have nothing to do with safari that are also available in the area. So one that I highly recommend is visiting Mtawambu. I actually have a travel vlog about it that I'll link in the description. It's a super underrated place, but I highly recommend it. It is a town where all of Tanzania's 120 tribes meet, and it is super interesting. And since most safaris start and end in Arusha, a lot of people also take the time to visit Arusha city and explore it a little bit, and also go see Mataruni waterfalls. So I also have a travel vlog about that, which again I think is a really good one, so I link it in the description too. There's another national park near Arusha, which is called Arusha National Park, which is usually not included in the Northern Circuit in those 4 national parks that most people visit. But I've also heard great things about it. I personally haven't been, but I'm definitely very intrigued, and it's a great place to do walking safaris if that's something that you're interested. And lastly, before moving on to other national parks in other parts of Tanzania, a lot of people who do safari in the north of the country, the Northern Circuit, will also combine it with a safari in southern Kenya, and they will visit parks such as the Masai Mara, Amboseli, Lake Nakuru, Lake Naivasha. So if you want to do that, I also have a video all about Kenya's best national parks and about everything that you need to know if you're traveling to Kenya. So again, I will link all of that in the description. Okay, so moving on from Northern Tanzania and the Northern Circuit, let's look at the south of the country. So there's 2 national parks there that are also fairly touristic, which are Mikumi National Park and Nyerere National Park. And these 2 are accessible from Zanzibar. So if you're already doing the Northern Circuit and then you're going to Zanzibar to just extend your vacation and have a few days of relaxing by the beach, I don't really recommend that you look into these national parks because you're already doing a lot of safari. But if you're spending most of your holiday, most of your trip in Zanzibar, and you just want to get a little taste of what safari is like, then I highly, highly recommend that you consider visiting these national parks. So I'll tell you a little bit later in the video how you can book these safaris and how you can get from Zanzibar to the mainland to do all of these safaris. But for now, I just wanted to let you know that they are there. And again, if you're traveling to Zanzibar, I have a fantastic video called Everything That You Need to Know If You're Traveling to Zanzibar, which I will link in the description. Super useful if you're planning to go there. Okay, so moving on to accommodation. Now that you know what parks you want to visit, you need to know where to stay. And most of the time when you book a safari, it's usually an all-inclusive and the accommodation is already selected. But depending on the kind of safari you book, so if you book a luxury safari, a mid-range safari, or a budget safari, the accommodation will vary and it will be the biggest difference in the price that you pay for these safaris. So in a luxury safari, as the name suggests, you can expect a luxury hotel or a luxury resort, which is super, super comfortable, has lots of amenities, and it's obviously pretty expensive. In a mid-range safari, the accommodation is, like the name says, mid-range. However, in a lot of countries in Africa, so in places like Kenya, Tanzania, a lot of the time mid-range accommodations will get pretty close to luxury quality with a significantly lower price. So even if you're looking for luxury resorts, luxury hotels, I really encourage you to look into the mid-range safaris too, because they might have what you are looking for with a much lower price. And lastly, we've got budget safaris. So in budget safaris, you're looking at budget accommodation or camping. So I actually did a camping safari for the first time in Tanzania. So I camped in the Serengeti and I camped in the Ngorongoro. If you want to know what that was like, you can check out my camping in the Serengeti video. Again, linked in the description. But I honestly really recommend it if you're okay with staying in a tent. Obviously, there's certain luxuries that you don't get in a tent, like the luxury of charging your phone overnight or being able to read after it's dark. But there's some things like the sunsets or waking up in the middle of the Serengeti, and that is just priceless. That is the biggest luxury that you can get. Safaris are always going to be expensive, no matter what you do. They're by nature an expensive activity. However, if you're going on a multi-day safari, by far the biggest factor in how much you pay for a safari is the accommodation that you choose. The difference between a luxury and a budget camping safari is in thousands of dollars, and even between a budget and a mid-range safari, the difference in cost can be a few $100 or even thousands as well. And the reason I recommend budget safaris for anyone who is comfortable staying in a tent is that you will be staying in tents, yes, but the rest of the experience is going to be completely the same to people who are paying hundreds or even thousands of dollars more for the exact same experience. You will be in the same jeeps, you will eat the same food, you will see the same animals. So if the only difference is accommodation, and the difference is hundreds or again thousands of dollars, I really, really, really think it's worth it to camp. But that's up to you, and the good thing about safaris in Tanzania is that you have so many options available. So now I want to talk to you about where you can find all of these different safaris and how you can book them. A great place to book safaris is a place called Safari Bookings. I used them for the first time in Tanzania, and I really liked my experience with them. It's honestly an amazing website. You have so many options. You can filter using price range, the type of safari that you want, the safari parks that you want to visit, and they recommend that you contact 3 different safari operators so that you can negotiate with 3 different tour operators and you can find the perfect safari for you. And that is exactly what I did. All of them replied almost immediately, and within a couple of days I already had my safari booked, and I had even negotiated a price that suited me better and made changes to the itinerary to include certain activities that were not included before. And another place that I use to book safaris is Get Your Guide. I absolutely love Get Your Guide. I use them in pretty much all of my travels. And there's a few safaris that I actually really like over there that I didn't get the chance to do myself because I decided to give safari bookings a try. But I will link them in the description down below as well. For example, 2 that I really like and that I want to do are the ones to Mikumi National Park and Nyerere National Park from Zanzibar that I was talking to you about. So to do these safaris, because Zanzibar is an island and these safari parks are on the mainland, you usually have to get on a small flight, and these Get Your Guide safaris include all of that. It's included in the price. They manage the whole thing for you, and it is super easy, definitely easier than trying to book it yourself. So I highly recommend them. I would love to do these myself one day, and I will link them in the description. I feel like I'm saying link in the description so many times during this video, but I just want to give you the best information and the best resources that I possibly can. But anyways, I'm so sorry about that. Something else that is also really important when booking a safari is the time of the year that you choose to go on safari, because this will have a really big impact on the animals that you will see. The best months for safari in Tanzania are January and February, and the summer months of June, July and August. This is the dry season in Tanzania, so the grass isn't as high, it's easier to see animals, and animals usually go to water sources, so it's easier to spot them there. However, the other months of the year also have their advantages. It is the rainy season, so it is super green and beautiful. You still get to see lots of animals, particularly in the Serengeti and the Ngorongoro. And it's just a really beautiful time of the year to go. Because it's the low tourist season, the prices are often a little bit lower as well. And because of that, that is the time of the year that I usually choose to go on. So when I did my safari in Tanzania, I went at the end of May, beginning of June, and it was perfect except for the Tarangire, where I barely got to see anything. So if you're traveling in the rainy season, maybe skip that one. When I was in Kenya, right across the border, I traveled in late March, early April, which I actually wouldn't recommend it now. I had a great safari, but March and April is the height of the rainy season, so roads can get flooded during this time, and I was very lucky that that didn't happen to me, but it could definitely happen to you, so I would actually not recommend that in hindsight. And if you want to see the Great Migration in the Serengeti, which is another one of the things that Tanzania is incredibly famous for, that I cannot believe I forgot to mention when I was talking about the Serengeti. The Great Migration, if you don't know, is a huge migration of herbivores from the Serengeti in Tanzania into the Masai Mara in Kenya. There's a very famous river crossing that is very dangerous for the animals because the crocodiles will be waiting for them to cross and will try to eat them. So there's lots of zebras, lots of wildebeest, lots of antelopes going all north in that direction, and all of the predators like lions, cheetahs, leopards will be following them. So it's a great chance to see them as well. So the best time to see the Great Migration is in June and July. Obviously, you can't predict with 100% certainty when it's going to happen exactly and when the river crossings will happen exactly every year. But when I was in Tanzania in late May, the groups of zebras and wildebeest were already grouping together, and they numbered in the thousands. They were grouping together to go north. So June, July is definitely the time to go to Tanzania if you want to see that. Lastly, I just want to give you some additional information that is information that I think you should know, but I don't think that it fits into any other category. So if you're traveling solo, like me, I've traveled solo both times that I've been in Tanzania, I really recommend that you do a joining safari instead of a private safari. So private safaris can be great for couples or for large groups. Mind you, they are more expensive, but for solo travelers, I think joining safaris are way better. They're a great chance to meet other people, and personally, I loved my joining safari. I met another solo traveler there from Hong Kong, 2 girls from China who were super nice, and 2 girls from Denmark who were camping with me and were also really, really nice. So I really recommend you do this if you're traveling solo. Something else that you should know is that distances between national parks, particularly in northern Tanzania, are huge. So you're definitely gonna do a lot of driving in your safari. You're going to do a lot of driving regardless, because if you go on a jeep safari, you're going to be driving around a national park all day trying to see animals. But there's also going to be lots of days where you're driving long distances without really seeing any animals, and there's really no way to get around that. It simply is what it is. Particularly when you go to the Serengeti, the road is not paved in that region of the country. It isn't paved from the Ngorongoro onwards, so you can't really go at a high speed with a vehicle, so it does take a while. Personally, it took me 12 hours to drive from Arusha to the Serengeti, and part of that is that the tour company that I booked with was really slow packing and unpacking all of the tents and all of that, so I definitely think it can be done in 10 hours, but it's still a pretty long drive. You can definitely choose to book a flight to go to the Serengeti. There are small flights that go to all of these national parks really, and Arusha, and that they will take travelers back and forth. But these cost a lot of money. They are very, very expensive. So I don't really recommend you do this unless you have a pretty high budget. Lastly, you can do different types of safari. So besides the classical jeep safari, which everyone knows about, you can also do walking safaris, which, as the name suggests, you just walk. There's also horse riding safaris if you're an experienced horse rider and you have a pretty high budget, because mind you, these are the most expensive safaris I have ever seen in my life. I'm an experienced horse rider and I've never been able to do one of these, but if you're an experienced horse rider and you have the money, you can do horse riding safaris in Kenya and Tanzania and in a lot of places. And if you want to know more about all of the different types of safaris that you can do, I have a video where you can find all of the info regarding that. I will leave the link in the description. Anyways, that's the end of this video. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it informational, and I'm very sorry for all of my annoying links in the description, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Anyways, if you liked this video, if you found it useful, make sure you like, you comment, and you subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one.